Before Achilles was born, his mother, the sea nymph Thetis, received a prophecy. The prophecy foretold that her son would become a hero greater than all mortals and might even shake Olympus. Ares, the proud god of war, feared Achilles could one day challenge his domain. Ares allied with Apollo, god of light and prophecy, to prevent Achilles from rising too far. Apollo confirmed the prophecy and agreed to help Ares shape Achilles' fate. When Thetis dipped Achilles into the River Styx to grant him immortality, Apollo intervened. A divine light subtly shielded the heel, leaving it untouched by the sacred water. This created a fatal weakness, a divine plot to control or destroy Achilles if he became a threat. The wrath of Achilles should have died. But instead of falling, he was spared by a god, and Hector, the one who was once his enemy, became the savior of his soul. Fate has shifted, but this was only the beginning. If you thought Achilles' war was over, you were wrong. Subscribe and discover why he is not just a hero, but one who dares defy fate itself. The sprawling plains before the city of Troy were drenched in the blood of fallen soldiers, the air heavy with the clash of bronze weapons and the anguished cries of the dying. Smoke spiraled upward from burning siege machines, casting a grim, grey veil over the sky. The once mighty walls of Troy now stood scarred and battered from ceaseless attacks. In the midst of this turmoil, Achilles, son of the goddess Thetis, swift as the wind, raged across the battlefield like an unstoppable storm. His eyes burned with a fury that seemed capable of igniting the heavens, his heart gripped by an all-consuming wrath. Patroclus, his closest companion, had been struck down, killed by Hector, the prince of Troy. The unbearable pain tearing at Achilles' soul had ignited a rage so fierce that even the gods paused to witness it. Dressed in armor crafted by the divine smith Hephaestus, every step he took thundered with the promise of vengeance. His spear, a gift from his father Peleus, shimmered in the sunlight, eager to taste blood. The Trojan lines broke apart before him like waves before a ship, no warrior brave enough to challenge the king of the Myrmidons. His sights were set on one target alone, Hector, the breaker of horses, who stood firm near the Scaean gate, clutching his spear with resolve. As Achilles closed in, the chaos of battle seemed to fade, the world shrinking to the space between the two warriors. Their eyes met, and in that instant, the weight of fate bore down on him. Hector, noble and unyielding, understood that this duel would determine not just his own destiny, but that of Troy itself. Achilles, fueled by sorrow and fury, saw only the man who had taken his dearest friend, Hector. Achilles' voice boomed like thunder, cutting through the din of war. You killed Patroclus, and for that, your life belongs to me. Not even the gods can shield you today. Hector stood tall, his helmet casting shadows over his face, yet his voice remained calm and firm. Achilles, swift-footed and fierce-hearted, I do not deny what I've done. Patroclus fought with valor, but war is a cruel master. If I must die, let it be with honor, and may the gods judge me fairly. With a savage roar, Achilles charged, his spear slicing through the air like a lightning bolt. Hector dodged with agility, countering with a thrust of his own spear. The clash of their weapons echoed like a mighty bell, each strike a testament to their extraordinary prowess. They circled each other, exchanging blows that would have felled ordinary men, their combat a lethal ballet orchestrated by the fates. For a while, neither could overpower the other. Hector's strength and cunning rivaled Achilles' speed and ferocity, the duel captivating both mortals and immortals alike. But as the sun rose higher, Achilles' unrelenting onslaught began to exhaust Hector. A quick jab broke through Hector's defenses, grazing his side, and a second strike shattered his shield. Hector stumbled, breathing heavily, yet he refused to surrender. In a last, desperate move, Hector hurled his spear toward Achilles' heart. Achilles deflected it effortlessly, his own spear now raised for the fatal blow. Hector dropped to his knees, defenseless and at his enemy's mercy. Achilles lifted his spear, its tip gleaming menacingly, poised to end Troy's greatest champion. But then, an astonishing turn unfolded. Hector, gasping for breath, reached into his cloak and pulled out a broken arrow, its shaft splintered and stained with old blood. He held it up, his voice shaky yet resolute. "Patroclus wanted you to have this," he said, his words piercing Achilles' rage like a blade. "He died not to fuel this war, but to end it." Achilles halted, his spear still aloft. His gaze fixed on the broken arrow. Memories surged through him. Patroclus's laughter by the fire, their shared hopes of glory, the quiet moments when they dreamed of peace. Tears welled up in Achilles' eyes, unbidden and unwanted, as his friend's final wish pressed upon him. "Why?" Achilles whispered, his voice cracking. "Why show me this now?" Hector met his eyes without flinching. "Because Patroclus saw what we could not, that this war consumes everything. He died hoping you'd see it too." The spear in Achilles' hand quivered, his determination faltering. The anger that had propelled him began to fade, giving way to deep sorrow. Slowly, he lowered his weapon, its tip sinking into the ground. "For Patroclus," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I will not take your life." But Hector shook his head, a faint, sad smile on his lips. "Only my death can bring peace," he said. Before Achilles could stop him, Hector grabbed Achilles' sword from its sheath and drove it into his own chest. Blood spread like a scarlet bloom, and Hector collapsed, his final breath a whisper. "If Troy falls, save my wife, Andromache, and my son, Astyanax." Achilles sank to his knees beside him, tears falling onto Hector's lifeless body. "I swear it," he vowed, his words a sacred promise. He held the fallen prince, honoring him not as an enemy, but as a kindred warrior. Apollo's intervention. From the heights of Mount Olympus, Apollo observed the scene, his divine heart moved by the honor displayed by both men. The god of light and prophecy had long watched Achilles with wariness, mindful of a foretold destiny, but now he felt a growing admiration in that act of mercy. Achilles had risen above his mortal nature, showing a virtue rare even among the gods. Yet fate, ever unpredictable, had more in store. From Troy's walls, Paris, Hector's brother, knocked an arrow, his hand guided by vengeance. The arrow flew straight and true, striking Achilles in his heel, the sole chink in his otherwise invincible form. Pain blazed through him, and he fell, his vision blurring. But as death approached, a dazzling light descended from the sky. Apollo, radiant and majestic, appeared on the battlefield, his presence a shining beacon amid the chaos. With a wave of his hand, he stayed death's advance, plunging Achilles into a deep sleep rather than eternal darkness. "This hero shall not die here," Apollo proclaimed, his voice ringing like a lyre's melody. "His fate is not yet complete." The Trojan soldiers, struck with awe and fear, dared not approach Achilles. Now bathed in divine radiance, Apollo's swift intervention ensured that the fates did not yet sever Achilles' thread of life. The battle for escape. When Achilles awoke, the world swam in a haze of pain and disorientation. His heel pulsed with excruciating torment, and he found himself surrounded by Trojan warriors, their spears ready to strike. Flashes of Hector's sacrifice and Apollo's aid raced through his mind, but survival demanded his focus. "To arms!" Achilles bellowed, rallying his own spirit. Despite the agony, he seized his sword, its familiar heft a small comfort. Yet his movements were slow, each step a struggle, and he knew he couldn't fight at full strength. From the fray emerged two allies: Automedon, his trusted charioteer, and Ajax, the towering shield of the Achaeans. "Achilles!" Automedon shouted, his face pale with worry. "We must get you to safety." Ajax raised his massive shield, placing himself between Achilles and the encroaching Trojans. "I'll hold them back," he rumbled, his voice like rolling thunder. "Automedon, take him away." The Trojans, sensing vulnerability, surged forward. Spears clattered against Ajax's shield, but he stood like a mountain, unbreakable. Automedon supported Achilles, helping him hobble toward the battlefield's edge. Their escape was cut off. A line of elite Trojans, their armor shining, blocked their path. Achilles, though wounded, refused to be a burden. "Leave me," he demanded, pride flaring. "I won't let you die for my sake." Automedon shook his head fiercely. "Patroclus would never forgive me," he shot back, his eyes fierce with resolve. "We fight together or fall together." Achilles nodded, gripping his sword tighter. The Trojans charged, and the fight was ferocious. Ajax swung his massive blade, cutting through armor and flesh, while Automedon struck with precision, downing enemies with every thrust. Achilles, despite his wound, fought like a wounded lion, his sword a whirlwind of death. The Trojan aimed for Achilles' injured heel, but Ajax blocked the strike, his shield breaking the spear. Achilles retaliated, plunging his blade into the attacker's chest. Blood sprayed, yet more foes pressed in. "We're surrounded," Automedon yelled, deflecting a blow aimed at Achilles. Achilles clenched his jaw, his strength fading. Then, a sudden surge of vitality flowed through him, perhaps a last blessing from Apollo. With a deafening cry, he unleashed a barrage of strikes, cutting a swath through the Trojans. Ajax and Automedon pressed forward, their weapons paving the way. Finally, they broke through, the Trojans' pursuit faltering against their relentless push. They fled toward the slopes of Mount Ida, finding refuge in a hidden cave. There, Achilles collapsed, his wound throbbing, but he was alive, saved by his comrades' loyalty and the god's grace. Aftermath. Resting in the cave, tended by Automedon and watched over by Ajax, Achilles pondered the day's events. Hector's sacrifice, Apollo's intervention, and his own narrow escape hinted at a larger purpose, a destiny still unfolding. From Olympus, Apollo looked down, a faint smile on his lips. "You have proven yourself, Achilles," he murmured, "but your journey is just beginning." And so, with his heel aching and his heart torn between grief and gratitude, Achilles prepared for the challenges ahead, unaware that his path would elevate him from mortal hero to something far greater. Achilles survived, but the shadow of Troy has not retreated. In the next episode, the fall of Troy and the price of mercy. Don't miss the most epic chapter in Greek mythology.